Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar on fleet maintenance and management on ServiceNow, hosted by Stave. I'm Christopher Morgan.
And I'm Adam Conradi. And today we're going to talk about how we can help solve some of your problems around fleet management. Stave provides a digital software service to improve enterprise efficiency. We automate business workflows and process in the cloud. And our Asset Pass solution is built on ServiceNow and has solved many of the problems we're going to discuss today for our customers.
So let's jump into why do we care about fleet management. I think there's three reasons. The first is fleets represent both significant costs and they represent both capital and operational expenses for most companies. So your fleet, your enterprise's fleet is both larger and more diverse than you think it is. And it's larger and more diverse than you think it is, even now that you're thinking about it. We all know about cars, trucks, buses, vans, forklifts, but there's also drones, cranes, electric cars, carts. All these other vehicles that you're managing are part of your fleet, and they all need to be tracked. Number two, managing all this digitally is really the only way you're going to be able to provide the reporting requirements you need to be able to make decisions that save you money. If you don't understand what you have in your fleet, how on earth would you expect to be able to make informed decisions about it? And if it's managed on a clipboard, you know you're never going to report on it and you're never going to be able to look forward. And really, your drivers and your users want a more modern digital experience when they're interacting with the solutions used to manage your fleet. The third is, we talk about ServiceNow and why it's a great platform. There's obviously other fleet solutions out there. Ours is built on ServiceNow because your data and your users are already in that platform. So it takes away any need for integration. We believe that the consolidating systems saves every enterprise money, and having ServiceNow as your single source of truth dramatically increases your ability to make real decisions on the data. You've already made the investment in ServiceNow, and you're probably not using it to it, and you're probably not using it to its full potential. So we help you do that. When we talk about fleet maintenance and management, there's really 8 topics and functions that our solution does, and you're going to want to look for in any solution. The first is the long-term vehicle assignment. So this is how do you assign to your users a vehicle that you have that they're going to have with them day to day, and nothing's going to change with that vehicle in the foreseeable future. They're going to need to report work orders, and you're going to need to be able to track the maintenance and the finance tasks on it, but it's in someone else's hands. Number 2 is a vehicle on demand or short-term assignment. This is renting vehicles. This is pulling vehicles out of a motor pool. This is the short term. I need it for a particular project, a job. I'm going to be a registered user on it and then turn it back. How do you track who has what when, where it's located, and what they've done with it? Third is tracking on an aggregate the availability and the health of your fleet. So at any given time, you should be able to know what percentage of your fleet is available, what percentage and count are under maintenance, and what percentage is being used by the users. This is how you're able to do forecasting and demand management. We're going to talk about scheduling, reporting, communicating, and tracking maintenance tasks and work orders. And those are 4 separate functions. Scheduling, reporting, communicating, and tracking are different, and you're going to treat the processes different for each. You will have maintenance tasks on the vehicles, both preventative and reactionary, and work orders to manage the jobs that are being done to repair them. Those repairs might be done in-house, or you might outsource that to a mechanic or a third-party provider. We're going to talk about fuel management. Fuel is a tremendous commodity cost, and the more you can reduce it and understand which vehicles are burning those costs, the better. Probably the newest function in the fleet management space is geolocation awareness. So we're at an advantage right now because so many of the devices that our users carry around in their pockets have GPSs that can report their location, and we can view that on a map, and we can extend that same feature set to a fleet to understand exactly what is located where and how long it's been there. We're going to talk about cost breakdown analysis. How much are you spending on maintenance? How much of that is reactive? How much of that is preventative? Which vehicles are the most problematic in the fleet? Which types of vehicles are the most problematic and are costing you the most maintenance dollars? And finally, safety training and inspections. And this is critical for compliance. It's also critical to make sure that people are being safe and operating the vehicles properly, as you expected, and safely. And we're going to talk about how that works as well. So at Stave, we've worked with many customers with fleet management based on ServiceNow. We've been doing this since 2014, and I just wanted to bring up some scenarios that we thought were interesting use cases of what we've seen. All names and faces have been changed to protect the innocent, but the first scenario is a medium-sized university that had about 250 vehicles. And of the vehicle fleet, many of them were common, like trucks, vans, cars, and buses to move the students around. But then they also had forklifts, parking interceptors, which kind of look like golf carts, and even an aircraft. Now, these are vehicles that, when you think about it, of course, a university would have, but it's not really initially what comes to mind. What they wanted to do is the leadership needed to understand the fleet readiness and availability so that they could accurately forecast future vehicle need. And that was particularly important around the buses. They needed to know at any given time how many buses were operational, how many they would need as the campus expanded and buses were used on new routes to shuttle students and faculty around. They also wanted a process so that students and faculty could check out the vehicles temporarily for events or sports and be able to use them on an ad hoc basis. Those were the main considerations. Some additional things that came up. It turns out that most of their vehicles had these highway toll transponders from EasyPass mounted in the vehicles. These were so that the vehicle could go through the toll lanes on the highways and not have to stop to pay the toll. But they're real money. So if one of those Easy Passes were to get removed or stolen from the vehicle, a student could be racking up charges and the university might never know. So, how do you track sensitive equipment that belongs in the vehicle each time? And finally, how could they do their training or waiver requirements prior to operating a vehicle and track all that in ServiceNow with skills? That was so important for bus drivers to limit their liability, and was also important for the students and faculty who are renting the vans to ensure their compliance and insurance requirements. And we're going to talk about this in the demo on how we solved these problems and more. I just grabbed these slides just to kind of validate what we saw at Stave is what other universities are doing as well. And this is just a bunch of news articles and screenshots talking about the exact same use cases about odd vehicles, buses, planes that we're seeing in the real world regarding fleet management today.
Okay, so the next customer scenario we're going to look at is a small insurance company that has a fleet of about 500 vehicles. These vehicles are housed in a headquarters motor pool, and they're used by investigators to investigate claims. So the things that were really important to this company were to be able to maintain a maintenance schedule, both preventive maintenance and unscheduled maintenance. They conducted all the maintenance in-house, but they had to have a way of tracking it so they could understand costs. They also wanted to know the geolocation of their agents and drivers so that they could track the usage of the vehicles. The last scenario we're going to look at is a regional lumberyard, which has a fleet of delivery and rental trucks. The delivery trucks are used to deliver lumber to the customers, and the fleet of rental trucks are used for customers to rent and deliver the products themselves. The firm outsources their vehicle maintenance, but they must track and schedule the maintenance in-house. So some of the key things that were important to them, they wanted to track and report vehicle fuel consumption and location, and then track and schedule maintenance and repairs. They also needed a way of scheduling reservations for the rental vehicles, track mileage for billing, and track maintenance to limit liability.
So let's jump into the demo. Right now I'm going to go over into the standard ServiceNow native UI in the browser and access Stave Asset Path and the Fleet module. Now the first thing we realize though is for most of your users, they don't know what ServiceNow is or they're not familiar with how to use it, so we wanted to get rid of that interface entirely. And that's why for all of Asset Path, we created this really beautiful web-based service portal for your users to do all their interactions. And this is great. Everything is laid out very simply, not just the fleet, because Asset Path as a suite does materials management, workflow management, work order management, and we made the whole thing responsive. which means that as you look at the portal from a different size device, such as a mobile or tablet that a fleet user might be using, the experience changes for your users as well. When I go to this portal, I'm going to go down to the Fleet Manager section. The first thing I'm going to click on is where we want to end up, the dashboard. And this is the screen that your fleet management team is going to be looking at daily or at least weekly. And we wanted to give the experience that at a glance, they could see exactly what was going on with the health of a fleet, any fleet. Doesn't matter if it's the university, an insurance company, the lumber company, they can see at a glance their fleet readiness. And this square is orange right now. It'll actually change color from green to orange to red as that percentage changes. This is quite a large organization in the sample data here. I mean, we've got almost $300 million of assets. We can see 9 are under maintenance, 16 of them are due for overdue maintenance, and we can see the breakdown in the maintenance costs that have been recorded. Luckily, this month we haven't been spending a lot of money, but we're tracking all these costs through the requests and through the work orders within the solution. At a glance, I've got these donut graphs to see the types of vehicles I have and the classifications of vehicles that I have, and then the work order breakdown. I've got a list of all my fleet assets underneath, and just like you'd expect from ServiceNow, we've got the interactive list. We can click into any of these. We can click under the vehicles that are under maintenance. I can see what's going on, and I can now drill in to investigate why these vehicles are not scheduled, are not available for work. So let me click into the Ford F-150 first. It's a good vehicle. So this is now the form that represents the vehicle record. And I can see all sorts of information about the vehicle, even data that we haven't entered in this sample data set, like a picture, like the vehicle information, when the next maintenance is due that I have scheduled, and even the current vehicle location. I can see the history of that location as well, as there's multiple locations on the map. I can be able to track any work orders that are currently active and assigned to this vehicle. So as a fleet manager, I know that if this vehicle is down for maintenance and there's no active work orders, that's a problem, and I need to investigate that. I can also see assets that should be included in this vehicle, such as that toll road transponder, and I can just drill into that and see that asset as well. I can open up a new work order, see any active work orders, all from the same screen. I'm going to go back to the main portal here, talk about some of the user functions of fleet management. Specifically, I want to talk about the reservation capabilities. This is something that all 3 of the customer scenarios wanted to do. The universities wanted to allow students to make vehicle reservations. The insurance company wanted to do the same, as did the lumber company. What I'm going to do is just go to the self-service area as an end user here, again, not as a fleet manager or someone who wants to use a vehicle, and click on the new reservation. You've got different options, and I'm going to click on the vehicle. And in this case, I can select a time or vehicle, and I want to make it vehicle-centric. And of the 2 vehicles that are available right now, I'm going to select this Volkswagen Jetta as the one that's preferred. And I'm going to say that I want to use this tomorrow and Saturday. And I've just got this interactive calendar widget here where I can simply drag and drop the time that I want to do the reservation for, and it will automatically grab that in ServiceNow. If I didn't want the week view there, I could look at it by a month, I could look at it by the day, but it's just very nice, and I'm just simply going to click Next, confirm my reservation, hit Reserve, and it's literally that easy for an end user to reserve a vehicle like that using Asset Path in ServiceNow. I'm going to click Home, and I'll be redirected to my homepage here. To confirm what I have, I can go into the My Reservations. I only have the one right now, and should my plans change and I want to cancel, I could simply do that with one button. I'm also receiving bidirectional emails throughout this process. So in addition to the portal, I've received an email stating that the vehicle reservation has been confirmed, and that I have it, and I'll receive a reminder calendar invitation as well as it gets close. So I do remember to get the vehicle, and I can even include custom locations such as where on campus or where in the company motor pool to pick it up. Very nice feature. What happens, however, if I didn't plan ahead and I just need the vehicle right now? So maybe I walk over to the motor pool and I go to the computer terminal or the iPad on the wall. I look at the list of vehicles digitally that is available, and let's say I would like this one here because it is at the same location. And I can see what the vehicle looks like, see where it is located. Now, in this case, it looks like there's an active work order for a flat tire. In the real world, I would probably want to pick a different vehicle. But in our case here, let's just simply click Checkout, select the date that we'd like it, and hit Save. And now that vehicle has been checked out and assigned to me as a user. If I return to my dashboard here, I will be able to see the vehicle that I have checked out right at the bottom. And again, this is going to work on my phone or on a tablet or on anybody's device, and it will scale nicely. Now I can opt to update my location, report an accident, fuel up, and that's if I need fuel using my own card or with the company fuel card. And when it's time, I check in that vehicle. It will ask me for the new location and the ending mileage, and it's literally that simple to do these ad hoc vehicle temporary use cases. That is also how the fuel costs can be calculated, by the way. I'm going to do a little bit of a scenario here, and I'm going to play the part of that user who requested the vehicle and then came back to the motor pool. The fleet person said, "Hey, how'd it go?" And I'm like, "Oh, it really wasn't that great." Now, I can get to the checked out vehicles a couple different ways. As a fleet manager, I would click on that currently checked out vehicle, and sure enough, we'll be able to see that Chevy Tahoe that I just checked out, that's checked out to Christopher Morgan, along with the geographic tags of where they are and the breakdown, and click into that. And maybe Christopher Morgan says, it was not a great experience. Not only was the tire flat, the radio didn't work. And as a fleet manager from this same screen here, I would just want to go in and, from the same screen, click Create New Work Order. It's that simple. And I can fill out the information such as who requested it or the priority, who it was assigned to, but let's just say radio doesn't work. And there is no sound coming out. Now at this point, I might want to add private work notes to the technician because, again, like the reservations, there's going to be emails back and forth to the person assigned to the vehicle, letting them know the status of all work orders. That is critical if this is if you're on a trip or if this is the vehicle you have long term. If your vehicle is being worked on and there's status changes, you want to know about it quick, fast, and in a hurry. I can do the scheduling at this point, and I can do the billing information at this point. So that includes not only billing to a particular cost center or department, I can estimate the costs and then ultimately put in the total cost for both labor and parts. It's going to automatically calculate that and roll up into my costs. So let's just click Save, creating this new work order. Talk a little bit about the process flow and approvals. Now, with certain categories of work order, we might want an approval. With certain other categories of workflow, we might not want an approval, and you can configure the workflows to do it either way. Perhaps if we can do it internally, we don't need the work order. If we're doing it externally, we might want to do that before we pay the money to have the mechanic do it. Going back to the record, sure enough, we can see both the original work order that was created about the flat tire and the new one with the radio. Now, the customer is upset sitting in front of me. As that fleet manager, I am going to take this vehicle and change its state into maintenance. Simply hit Save. Because all the data in the platform is related and everything is tied together. When I then go back to the dashboard that I initially looked at first and click into that, it is going to show a couple different dynamic things. First of all, the fleet readiness factor did change. I think we were at 67%. Now we're at 63% because it took that new vehicle out of the fleet into consideration. We also have 10 under maintenance now as opposed to the 9. And I can drill into that and see that new Chevy Tahoe, I believe it's this one, or it's probably this one, because it's still assigned to Christopher Morgan, that's currently down, and view the work orders that are opened on it, all tied into the same platform. So that is so critical, how we just saw the billing, the requests, the fuel consumption, the reservations, the assignment, the geolocation, all from the same central system of action or system of record, all in Asset Path, all in ServiceNow. Now, we're just kind of scratching the surface. I know we're running out of time this morning for the webinar on all the features that both what you're going to want to do with fleet management, but also what you're going to want to do with any full capital asset planning tool like Asset Path. And we're more than happy to drill into those details at a later date. But today we wanted to highlight on the fleet management capabilities, particularly around those scenarios that we actually saw in the real world working at Stave and developing these cloud-based solutions to help enterprise processes.
Thank you, Christopher, for that demo. So we really just scratched the surface here on what the capabilities of our tool can do. If you have any questions or you want to do a deeper dive into a demo that's personalized for you or your company, please reach out to either me or Zaid Omar, who's our Director of Sales, and we'd be happy to schedule that with you.
So it does look like a couple questions have come in. First question from John: Does creating a work order automatically take a vehicle out of service? No. And that's a great question to ask. So when we talk about the vehicles being in maintenance, out of maintenance, even on order, if it's a vehicle that's incoming, that's brand new, the status is independent of the work orders. And that's because the work might not necessarily take the vehicle out of service. I used that example earlier of the broken radio. The broken radio is obviously something we'd like to fix to keep everybody happy, but it certainly doesn't prevent the vehicle from being operational. Something like the flat tire work order, that might, and that's why you can create specialty business rules depending on your fleet policies that can link the two together. So an example might be a broken tail light. A broken tail light is not necessarily going to stop the vehicle from operating. However, most companies are going to have a policy that if a tail light is out, that vehicle is inoperable. You can't drive it for safety, insurance reasons. It's a policy. It's not a physical, it's a policy. And so with Asset Path, you can create that business rule that when a work order is created on the vehicle with the category of brake light, will automatically change the status of that vehicle when that work order is put in to take it out of service to save that extra step there. But you have the flexibility either way. Again, it depends on the way you run your fleet. Another question from Dinesh: Can we integrate with vehicle monitoring hardware? Another great question. I think you're talking about, Dinesh, there's hardware solutions that plug into vehicles. Every modern car and truck and forklift has what's called an ODB-C2 port. It's onboard diagnostics, and there's a whole category of hardware that plugs into these. It's a standard size port. This device can plug into that port and monitor everything about a vehicle: engine speed, whether it's on fuel, and those devices have wireless capabilities and they can report back. We've worked with devices that use an antenna system, so they'll relay over radio waves to a base station, and we've used cellular versions of that as well. But yes, the answer is yes, you can integrate with those solutions and bring that data into Asset Path. So why would you want to do that? Well, automatic fuel gauging, automatic engine issues, or if you're using with one of our energy customers, gating. So every time a vehicle passes a particular geographic gate, because they do use the geolocation aware hardware, it flags it in the system. It sends an alert, and that's for line haul purposes. So another great question there. Looks like another question: what ServiceNow license is required for this? Adam, would you like to take that question?
Sure. So the ServiceNow licensing will depend on what you have currently. And this is usually something that we would work through with a customer during a pre-sales engagement. So if you have any of those questions you want to talk specific, please reach out to me.
Exactly, and there's customers that actually had ServiceNow and came to us second. They were able to leverage some of their ServiceNow subscription licenses, and then there's customers that started with this and didn't even have ServiceNow for ITSM or the other kind of common things in the platform that you generally see. So it depends, and it's really the advantage, I think, of the platform capabilities to have that flexibility. Any other questions? Adam, do you have any questions on your side?
No, I didn't. No.
And I don't see any more questions either on Twitter at Stave Apps or in the WebEx. I'd just like to thank everybody for joining. We're going to make a recording of this available, and we'll publish it out to everybody. Please feel free to share it, tell your friends, and we're happy to answer any other additional questions or do further demos on AssetPath and our fleet management capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.